You are with the University of Karate, and again, we've come together to look at a very important and also fascinating conversation about the history, the science, and even some of the principles, concepts, disciplines that come together to create what we know as martial arts. I'm here with Sensei Mike Biddle, who has for many years, over 40 years, studied not only Uechi-ryu and received a high level of understanding and knowledge in the martial arts from the foundation of the Pangai Noon style of Uechi-ryu karate, but also he studied a number of different disciplines, whether it be Aikido, Eskrima, and other arts that have also added to his knowledge of the martial arts. He's also been able to study under more than one master instructor, and he has been giving us a lot of insight that we've been benefited from video to video. Today we're going into a very special topic because we often find that when we look at the martial arts, and for those that are watching or listening to this, those that have watched martial arts movies, you could probably say that 60 to 70% of the movies that you've seen, other than the revenge topic, and we all know the revenge topic in most martial arts movies, you'll find that there is this student-teacher dynamic in many movies. And we want to talk about, in a number of different talks, this may be the first of them, the concept that many things are being lost in the martial arts. The idea of training that is hard and difficult is going away for more comfortable or exercise-centered training. The idea of conditioning the body to some degree to take blows and punches has kind of passed away to wearing a lot of padding and so on. The concept of even character development and the idea of Budo has gone away for MMA and being tough and being a tough guy rather than a person on the path of developing self and having a desire to be faithful and loyal to the community as well as to their teachers. We want to talk about the topic of the lost relationship between master and student. The lost relationship between master and student. We want to talk about the fact that the concept, firstly, of having a master instructor and a student is not very well understood. What does it mean for someone to master the martial arts, master those disciplines, understand the deep teachings of martial arts, especially when it comes to the principles of self-development, the character development that one must have? A master teacher is looking for certain things. They're looking for a student that is not a tough guy, but is someone that's tough mentally, that is not going to easily quit. And they're going to test them to see if they are worthy to receive all the treasures of knowledge that that person has received from their teachers, from that teacher, all the way back generally. That person, the gatekeeper, will they just pass it on to anyone? We want to ask Sensei Biddle some of the concepts of the master-teacher dynamic, and even he'll share some of his testimonies about how he came to understand the martial arts and what his teachers did with him. Sensei Biddle, let's talk a little bit about the idea of what a master teacher is looking for in a student.
Yeah, that's a very good topic because there's a special dynamic in that process. And I want to start from, let's say, the beginning student's perspective going into a martial arts class and starting to take classes and something that, so I had a reason I had to start martial arts, and we talked about that prior, but I had a back problem and martial arts did fix that, but I had to do something, so I took up karate for that reason because I wanted to do something. So I went in there and I wanted to learn. I always thought karate was cool, kung fu, David Carradine, all that. So when I went to class, I was genuinely excited to join, and a friend of mine joined with me at the same time. But as we started learning things, it was so exciting. What I figured out pretty early on was, as a student, it was what you'd see day in and day out, and you see this with any discipline, whether it's martial arts or tennis or whatever, is the student comes to class, she takes a class, she takes a class, goes home, and then comes back the next couple of days and does it repeat. The problem is, if let's say, for example, we had a class on Monday and Thursday, and I go in on Monday, and my teacher's teaching me, and we're learning all these things in the class, and then I go home and do nothing and don't work out, don't practice, and come back on Thursday, I am no better than when I left. And in fact, I've probably backed up a bit because you forget things. So you're actually giving your instructor less to work with. Now, like I said, I fell in love with it, and I seriously meant that. And I had the time in a period of my life to devote the time to it. Now, I know everybody's situation is different, so I'm not speaking, that's not what I'm not trying to denigrate anything. This is just my situation, but it does reflect in this topic. So I decided what I was going to do was I'd go to class on Monday, and my sensei would teach us the different drills and the exercise things. Then I practiced them for hours after I got home. The first thing I did when I got home was go out in the garage and do what he taught me, because I didn't want to forget it. And then Tuesday night or during the day or whenever I had opportunity, I would do those things. Wednesday. And then Thursday, when I went back, I was better than I left. And here's the interesting thing. So the teacher is watching the students' progressions. That's what it's all about, right? My instructor noticed that I was getting better, and I got his attention. So he came up to me after class one day, and I was just a yellow belt, right? A yellow belt. And he comes up to me and says, "Hey, Mike, you want to hang out and work out?" I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So we would do things. We'd spar. We'd do push-ups, sit-ups. We'd work out. Now, he showed me, he worked with me at my level. And that's the important thing. I wasn't learning brown belt stuff. But what he was working with was the techniques and the things I needed. And I was getting extracurricular teaching. It was amazing. I was thrilled. So then I had that, and that built on that. And then every time I kept working, coming back, we did this for well over a year. See, up until almost 2 years, I would work with them, and then we'd even meet on weekends up at the school. He'd say, just him and I would meet at the school. Or other nights we'd meet up at the school and work out. We'd kick the bag, we'd do all these things. So imagine what's happening now, and we had nine schools at the time, and then you start integrating with these other schools. Everybody starts to notice, why is Biddle so good? And it was always, well, he's just natural. No, it was not natural. I worked harder than everybody. So you develop this. So this is what your teacher is looking for. He's looking for the extra effort, the one who wants to put in the extra, the 100 extra reverse punches or the extra push-up. Or if you do as many push-ups as you can, and you do till you can't even get off the ground. That's what they're looking at. And then they're like, okay, this person wants to learn. And this is what we all want to do as teachers, is we appreciate that somebody has the respect that they want to learn from us. Now, the next level you get to is when you get, let's say, into the advanced black belt levels and you get higher levels. Again, it's the same process. So I had an instructor that when we were doing a brown belt and black belt classes, and we'd all work out, and then he'd close the class, and everybody would leave, and I noticed he would go over and stand in the corner and wait, just stand there. Everybody leave, and then I one time waited after class to see what he was doing, and he would leave. He would just be the last person to leave. He was always the last person to leave. So one day he was teaching some stuff, and I had been working on it, again, at home, working hard. And I came back to him, and I started asking questions. This is after everybody left. He was the only one sitting there, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, let's do this. So every Friday for 2 years, him and I worked out, sometimes all night. We would finish class around 9 o'clock, and I would roll in at the house sometimes at 4 or 5 and 6 in the morning. We were working all night. And then he would give me homework assignments and say, okay, now here's what you're going to work on this week. When we come back, we're going to go over that. So this is what we did, and we did this for 2 years. And I remember I asked him one time, and it's a little emotional because it is, because this expresses the bond. I said, what I noticed that you would always be standing over in the corner. What were you waiting for? And he looked at me and he said, you. And because I was the one, now, am I special? Am I gifted athletic? No, I'm no better than anybody else about anything. I just wanted it more. And I outworked everybody. And anybody that ever knew me and knew that period of time would say that. And also, see, the other quality in that is that they're also looking at, now I'm going to flip this over to the teacher side a bit. So as a teacher now, then I started teaching, I actually started teaching early. I was a brown belt when I started teaching my instructor out of school, and the black belt was leaving. So I worked with him for about 6 months, then he left, and I actually taught as a brown belt for a while, which is unusual. But again, I was not the norm. I was way above black belt status in knowledge, but not in certificate. So I was capable of teaching, otherwise my instructor wouldn't have put me out there. So I learned very early that as you're watching your students, you're looking at what they're doing, not just in their form and their technique and showing them and teaching them, but you're also looking at the attitude. And you can tell. It doesn't take long. It's not hard. And I saw thousands come and go. Literally thousands come and go. And it's very rare out of that time where you find one.
Wow.
And my main instructor, he probably taught 50,000 people. I was the only one left at the end there, and was the only one that was taught the things that nobody else was taught. So that's a. Now again, I'm not beating my drum. I loved this, and I was willing to work hard for it. Let me give you an anecdotal. Guy and a girl meet. They get infatuated. They think they're in love. They do everything in the world they can to please each other. They bathe. They cut their hair. They trim their nails. They do all these things. They have these manners, all this stuff, because you're trying to court them. It's the same thing when you're becoming into a discipline, whatever sport it is. If you have the mindset of, I'm in love with this and I'm courting it, it's going to court back. The very nature of it is going to respond. And if you have a student or teacher, they're going to respond to that because they're going to go, wow, this person wants to learn. I'll teach them everything I can teach them.
You know, we had a conversation about this our last taping session, and I'm not sure how it came about, but we were talking about when it deals with the physical tests and so on that you're seeing people pass these barriers. We had a conversation about the selection process of the Navy SEALs and how they pick Navy SEALs. Because most people think that you do these tests and then you pass, and that's how you become Navy SEAL, as opposed to the amount of commitment you put into what you're doing. You wanted to talk about that a little bit when it comes to also the amount of commitment that people are looking for as someone to pass on the style to?
Yeah, because what you're looking for is the best of the best, but that best isn't the most physically talented. It is not. It is not. I've watched Navy SEAL Bud training, and I've watched interviews with these Navy SEAL people, and they say, yeah, we throw out a lot of guys that are absolute athletes. But they want the person. I was watching one where they're swimming in a pool, and they're having to swim underwater back and forth, and they had to make so many laps. They didn't care about the guy that finished the 10 laps. I don't know what the number was, doesn't matter. Let's say it's 10. They didn't care about the guy who made 10. They were impressed. You know who they cared about? The guy who kept swimming until the point where he lost consciousness and went to the bottom of the pool, and they had to dig him out. That's the guy they want. They want the guy who's willing to die. And that person is not going to quit. So imagine that human being as a fighter. You got a long way to go to stop that human being. And I remember watching some of the interviews with the Bud instructors, and they're saying, well, what we want, we put these guys through all these things. We're not trying to break the body. We're not trying to we're trying to break their mind. Because when your mind breaks and you still find the will to continue, something has changed. And there is an experience in that, and someday we'll come back to this. It's regarding its on Chen. But you have to break all the way down to where there's nothing left and the mind finds something else. In any discipline, if you look at, let's say, golf, Tiger Woods was the best. Why? He outworked everyone, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. His dad trained him. He used to yell racial slurs to him, all these things to condition his brain to try to break him. His dad was a Green Beret. He knew a little bit about this. So, now, is this for everybody? That level? No, of course it's not. But if you want this, if you want more, then that's what it takes to get to the higher levels of anything, business, your relationships, your friendships, whatever. You have to outwork everybody. And remember, even the movie Rocky, where Rocky Balboa, how did he win? He outworked him. He outworked him. And Bruce Lee, what did he do? The guy never stopped training. So that's what it takes. And your master, your teacher's watching that, and those are the people that are. So there's another anecdotal story. I don't know if it's true, but if it's not, it expresses the point. When you went to the Shaolin Temple, and you wanted to get ancients to the Shaolin Temple, there'd be a group of kids out there. They're all usually young kids. They'd all be standing out there, and the master come out and say, "All right, everybody get in a horse stance." And they all get in a horse stance. Master go back inside. An hour goes by. People leave. Another hour goes by. People leave. Another hour goes by. People leave. It could be 10 or 12 hours. There's one little kid left. He goes inside. That's the one they want. Because that's the kid that they can't break. Or he's willing to go that extra mile.
We have a lot more to talk about. We're just getting started. We're looking at some of the physical things that are easy for anyone to grasp when it comes to the lost relationship between the master and the student, and this lost idea of giving all, being ready to give all, having a full commitment to developing a knowledge, an ability, a training in the martial arts. We want to go into another topic, but we're going to put a comma here. We want to come back and talk about the idea of character perfection. Not just a physical student, a student that's ready to give all, but also the development of character, an upright, loyal, faithful, upright citizen, as well as martial artist. We'll put a comment there for now, but we're going to come back at the University of Karate and continue our conversation with Sensei Mike Biddle on this unusual, but also very informative and exciting topic. Please continue this conversation in the comments below. Ask questions, share your thoughts, like and subscribe to this video, and look for our next topic under the concept of the lost relationship between the student and the teacher, master and the teacher, as we talk about character development, or Budo. This has been the University of Karate, and we thank you for joining us.